Okay, so today for math, we are doing a Check My Progress over lessons 1 through 3. So you should have already finished this. If you have not finished it, stop this video and finish it right now. If you have finished, your everything should be put away except for your pencil, your scratch paper if you have it, and your pencil should be put away, Everything should be put away except for the Check My Progress, scratch paper if you have it, and a red pen. Okay, so right now, if you have not written your name, number, and date at the top, do that right now with your red pen. Your pencil should be nowhere near you, nor should there be an eraser. Okay, now we're going to do the vocabulary test. Number 1, the directions for this part say write true or false. So number 1, a decimal is a number that uses place value and a decimal point to show part of a whole. Of course, that is true. That is the exact definition of a decimal that our book gave us, so that is true. Number 2, in the number 36 hundredths, the 3 is in the tenths place. Well, we know that this 0 is in the ones place, then we have our decimal point, this 3 is in the tenths place, and then this 6 is in the hundredths place. So, number 2 is also true. Now, number 3. In the number 58 hundredths, the 5 is in the hundredths place. Well, let's look. This 0 is in the ones place. Then we have our decimal point. This 5 is in the tenths place, and this 8 is in the hundredths place. So, number 3 is false. Make sure that you're correcting along with me if you need to. Now, let's go ahead and go down to the concept check. The directions for number 4 and 5 say write each decimal. So number 4, we have 4 tenths. And we know that 4 tenths means there's a 0 in the ones place. Then we have our decimal. And then we have a 4 in the tenths place and nothing in the hundredths place. Because remember, we only say the name of the place that our last digit is in. So if we say the name of the tenths place, that means our last digit has to be in the tenths place. So it should look like 0, decimal point 4. Number 5, we have 32 hundredths. Well, we know in our ones place we have 0 because we don't have the name of a whole number. Then we have our decimal point. And we know that when we say a decimal, we say the whole number that comes, the entire number that comes after the decimal point. So that means we have to put a 32 after the decimal point, and then we say the name of the place that the last digit is in. Well, we know that this 2 is in the hundredths place. So that means 32 hundredths looks like 0, decimal point 32. Okay, the directions for the next part, number 6 and 7, say shade the model, then write the decimal. Well, number 6 says 3 out of 10. We know that this is a tenths grid, so we know if 3 out of 10 are shaded, that means we need to shade 1, 2, and 3 out of the 10 pieces on our tenths grid. Since we have a tenths grid, that means our decimal, the last digit, is going to be in the tenths place. We have no full grid, so that means a 0 goes in the ones place. Then we have our decimal point, and we have 3 out of 10, which means 3 goes in the tenths place, so we have 3 tenths. Now number 7, we have 8 out of 10, and they're giving us a tenths grid. So if we have 8 out of 10, that means we need to shade 8 out of these 10 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have no full tenth grid, so that means a 0 goes in the ones place, and then our decimal point comes after the ones place. We have a tenths grid, so that means our last digit is going to be in the tenths place. We have 8 out of 10 shaded, so that means we have 8 tenths. So our decimal looks like 0, decimal point 8, and we say it as 8 tenths. Now, let's look at number 8 and 9. It says write each decimal. Oh, well now we have hundredths grids. So we know our last digit is probably going to be in the hundredths place. So remember, to get the ones, we count how many full hundredths grids we have. We have none, so that means number 8, 0, goes in the ones place, and then we have our decimal. Now to get the tenths, we count how many full columns we have. We have no full columns, which means we have 0 tenths. Now, to get the hundredths, we count how many little pieces there are that do not make up a full column. And we have 1, 2, 3. So that means a 3 goes in the hundredths place. And we say that decimal as 3 hundredths. Number 9, we're going to do the same thing. First, we count how many full grids we have. We have none, so that means a 0. Oops. A 0 goes in the ones place. Then we have our decimal, and to get the tenths, we're going to count how many full columns we have. Well, I can't really tell exactly on this one, but I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4 full columns, and then part of another one. But we only have 4 full columns, so that means a 4 goes in the tenths place. Now for the hundredths, we count how many of these little pieces make up our partially filled column. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means a 4 goes in the hundredths place, and we say that number as 44 hundredths. Okay, go ahead and turn the page. Now we're going to do the back, page 650, and I hope you all have units. If not, do not pause this video and put the units on now, because I said it counts now. So go ahead and turn to page 650, and we will do these problems together. So number 10 says, the distance between the grocery store and the post office is 34 hundredths of a mile. Write this distance as a decimal. So all we need to do is we need to think of place value. So first, we have no full miles. It doesn't say the post office is 1 mile and 34 hundredths of a mile. It just says 34 hundredths. So we know a 0 goes in our ones place. And then, of course, we have our decimal. We know when we say decimals, we say the entire number that comes after the decimal point. So we have 34. And then our last digit should come in the place that is set. So that means this 4 has to be in the hundredths place, and it is. So this is how we would write the decimal for 34 hundredths. Now we need our unit of a mile. So if you do not have that unit, you need to use red pen. If you just have mile and not of a, you're okay. As long as you have the word mile, you are good. Okay, number 11. There are 10 fish in an aquarium. 4 of them are blue. That's important because we know out of the 10 fish, 4 are blue. Write a decimal to show the part of the fish that are blue. Well, we know we have no holes. It doesn't say all of them are blah, blah, blah. So that means in our ones place we have a 0. And then our decimal point. Well, we know 4 out of the 10 are blue, so that means we're working with tenths, and we put a 4 in that tenths place. It doesn't say anything about 100 or anything like that, so we have nothing in the tenths place. So that means our decimal looks like 0, decimal point 4. We say it as 4 tenths, and the unit is 4 tenths of the fish. If you just put fish, that's fine. As long as you have the word fish, you're good. If you don't have the word fish, you need to use your red pen to write 4 tenths of the fish. For number 12, we have a coin question, and it is different than what you have. So I went through and I crossed out everything that you don't have. So what the question says is, William found the coins shown in his pocket. What part of a dollar are the coins? Write a decimal to show your answer. So, what we have to do first is we have to figure out how much money this is. So, we know a dime is worth 10 cents. A quarter is worth 25 cents. A nickel is worth 5 cents, and a penny is worth 1 cent. So now we have to add all of these together to figure out how much money we have in all. 10 plus 25 is 35, plus 5 is 40, plus 1 is 41 cents. Now, this is not a decimal, this is a whole number. So we have to say what part of a dollar this is. Well, we know that there are 100 cents in $1. So that means 41 cents means 41 out of 100. We know if we have 41 out of 100, well, we have no holes. We have no whole numbers, so a 0 goes in our ones place. We have 4 tenths, because we could make this with 4 dimes. So that means a 4 goes in our tenths place. And then we know we have 1 little cent in the ones place, so that means a 1 goes in the hundredths, because we could make this money with 4 dimes and 1 penny. And we know that dimes each show 1/10 of a dollar, and pennies each show 1/100. So if we can imagine how many dimes and how many pennies we can use to make this number, that will tell us the number of nines is the digit that goes, the number of dimes is the digit that goes in the tenths place, and the number of pennies is the digit that goes in the hundredths place. So you should have 0, decimal point 41, or 41 hundredths. And so you may say 41 hundredths of a dollar. If you have dollar as your unit, that's fine. You can also write it like this, with a dollar sign at the front, a 0 in the ones place, a decimal point, and then your 41 hundredths. That is another way to write this. This is the way that you will see it in the real world, either this way or this way. Okay, very good. Let's go on to number 13. There are 10 questions on a test. Sophie answered 8 of them correctly. Write a decimal to show what part of the test she answered correctly. So, we're going to cross this out because it's a little different. I thought it was the same, but I guess I didn't look closely enough. So our question here is, what part of the test did she answer correctly? We know she answered 8 out of 10 correct. So how we would write that, we know she did not get the whole thing correct, so there's nothing in our ones place. Then we have our decimal, and we know that she got 8 out of 10. So that means we have 8 tenths of the test. If you wrote of the questions, as long as you have test or the word questions, you are correct. If you don't have either of those words, use your red pen to write of the test. Okay, very good. Let's move on to the last one. Okay, number 14 says, which of the following is represented by the number line? And so here we have a number line, and we have our dot on the 0 decimal point 4. Well, we know that these are not wholes, because we have 0 on one end and we have 1 on the other end. So that means these are parts of that whole. Let's count how many pieces we have. Well, we already can tell that it's not 4 decimal point 0, because that would be 4 holes. So we know it's not that one. Let's count how many pieces this is broken into. That may help us. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's broken into 10 pieces, so that probably means that it's showing us tenths. We know it's not 4 out of 5 because there's 10 pieces, so it can't be 4 out of 5. And we know it's not 4 hundredths because that would mean there'd have to be 100 pieces. So the only one left is 4 tenths, B. So that has to be the answer. It also has to be the answer because we know if we have 0.4, we would say that as 4 tenths. So B, 4 tenths, is the correct answer. Okay, so what you should have done is you should have been correcting if you needed with your red pen as you went. Now go ahead, if you had a separate sheet of paper, like if you decided you wanted to do grids, go ahead, keep that with your Check My Progress. Otherwise, just put it in the folder or wherever you're putting your things to be turned in. And then we are done with math until tomorrow.